think I'm starting to get used to this. So I almost got myself a Nexvey Flash a couple months ago, but I'm so glad that I waited for the Pro model to come out because this one's got a little bit more to offer. Let's go take a closer look. So this is the Nexvey Flash Pro, similar to the original, but this one runs on the more powerful 60 volt powertrain, and it comes with a larger wheel set, refresh styling. I gotta say, first impressions, this has got to be the best looking electric pit bike that I've received this year. It's actually the first one with a frame design with a battery lid up top that you can unlatch with a key and pull the battery through the top and hot swap it, much like a Ciron Light BX, except with a $1,500 price point. And all the plastics and the frame itself are all matching with this metallic finish, and it already comes stock with a gripper style seat. And here's everything else that came in the package. You got the 17-inch front wheel, 190mm front disc brake rotor, user manual, decal set, front fender, front number plate with the LED headlight already pre-mounted, handlebar with the throttle and the display already pre-mounted, charger. This one is a 67.2 volt 3 amp output. So this is a 60 volt bike. Toolkit with all the hardware and cable management. They even provided some red Loctite. I'm assuming that's for the rotor bolts. Also came with 2 keys, 2 NFC cards, and the tiniest set of foot pegs I've ever seen on an electric pit bike. Like, here's what it looks like next to my Burromax XRA, and it's almost half of the surface area. My absolute pet peeve are these cheap quality tools. So you can see I just barely torqued that down and it already rounded the tip of this Allen key. And all the wire connectors up front are color coded, so they make it really easy for you to figure out what plugs to what. Oh, the front number plate also has a horn mounted on the backside. You know what? We should probably wrap all these cables before we put the front plate on. Quite a tight fit. So the hardware for the rotor already have blue Loctite on them, so I'm not sure why we're double Loctiting it. I'm gonna opt out of this in case I want to swap this out to a 220 in the future. The front axle comes with 2 wheel spacers. The slightly longer one goes on the side where the brake caliper is mounted. And here it is, fully assembled. It took me about half an hour to put together by myself, and that includes me filming at the same time. I'm gonna leave this hooked up to the charger overnight just to make sure it's fully charged before we go over all the specs and features of the new Nexvey Flash Pro. The Flash Pro is now fully charged. There are actually 2 ways you can charge this bike. You can either use the charge port here on the left side, or you can open the battery lid to access the top side of the battery. To pull the battery out, you would just disconnect the lead connector and then the charge port harness, and the battery just pulls right out easily. Too easily in my opinion, because there's nothing securing this battery in place in the frame besides the battery lid. I mean, it's nice that they made it really easy to hot swap it, but this bike was made with a very specific feature, which is the auto-wheelie function. So if you're constantly popping the front wheel up and dropping it back down, I would assume that they would have secured the battery more, since it seems to have a pretty loose tolerance in the frame. Same thing with the battery lid. So if you look closely at the latch, the striker is all the way in, and there's still quite a bit of play, so you can just imagine that that's not really pressing down on the battery too well. Now this is a 60 volt 27 amp hour lithium battery pack, which is supposed to supply enough capacity for up to 50 miles of range per charge, and this bike claims to have a top speed of 55 miles per hour, which I don't know of any other 60 volt bike that claims that type of speed. I know a couple 72 volt bikes like the Cruise HP 131E, which goes about 53 on my GPS, but we'll find out how fast this thing actually goes when we take it out on the road. I've been staring at this bike quite a lot overnight, and I noticed that they do quite a few things differently compared to other electric pit bikes in this category. Like, I noticed that the handlebars pushed forward quite a bit from the top triple tree, which I have seen before on a Roar Mantis X, but I haven't seen them on the smaller bikes. I'm thinking that they may have done that to make it feel more roomier for a taller rider, though the recommended rider range height is up to 69 inches, which is, what is that, 5'9"? So I'm pretty much on the upper end on the rider height recommendations for this bike. I also noticed that they use a 35 chain rather than a 420 chain, which is what you see on a Tudio, Yasma, Botinzu. And they even have a chain tensioner here at the bottom, which I definitely have not seen on any of the other pit bikes. Now, is it going to cause it to perform any different? I'm really not sure. We're just going to have to find out when we take it out on the trails. I also think that the front and rear wheel ratio is a little imbalanced. Now, I have had my fair share of other electric dirt bikes that have a 17-14 wheel set, and I think I finally figured out why this one looks a little bit off. The rear tire size is significantly smaller than the other ones that I've seen on the market. Like, this is a Mega Wheels D2 Pro, which is essentially the same thing as a Yasma IN10 Pro or a Botinzu EM5, and it comes with a 90-114 for the rear, and then the same tire size on the front for the Flash Pro, 70-117, 70-100 for the Leonex X1 Max as well. And then this one is also a 90-114. So that's why the 17-14 looks pretty good on these other bikes. But to me, it just looks a little bit off on the Flash Pro. So just a few notes for the manufacturer, Nexvey, in case you're watching this, put a bigger tire size on the Flash Pro, upgrade this to a 90-100. I'm thinking that there's enough clearance around the chain and the swing arm area. Second note is put a larger and more aggressive set of foot pegs on. My personal opinion, I think these are way too tiny for a dirt bike, and do something about the loose tolerances on the battery lid, just so it presses up against the battery a little tighter. So to turn the bike on, you actually don't need to use the key. They provide the NFC cards. Just hold the power button down for 2 seconds. Password screen's gonna come up. NFC on the screen. And that's how you turn it on. Now, when you first turn it on, it is in park, which means the throttle does not function. For the throttle to function, you have to put it in either mode 1, 2, 3, or 4. 4 is the anti-loop function, which I'll show you in a little bit. Mode 1 is the lowest power mode. Mode 2 is medium. Mode 3 is the fastest setting. Up top, you've got the battery meter. This is the voltage. This is 66.9 volts. Center of the display is your speed. Left side is the mode. And the bottom is the odometer reading. As you see, we have 0 miles on it. We're going to be discovering this bike together. On the left side, you got the headlight switch, which has 3 different modes. You got bright white, bright yellow, and a strobe light. I'm likely just going to be using the bright white. And then on the bottom left, you got the horn. And then on the right side, we just have the full twist throttle. Now, something that I would have really loved to see on this bike is a brake light or tail light, and also a reverse button. Those are common items that I've started to see on pit bikes that have come out this year. All right, let's take this thing out on the road and see how fast the Flash Pro actually goes. I also want to see how accurate or inaccurate the speedometer is, since that's kind of my pet peeve. But so far in mode 1, seems to be super accurate. GPS is reading 15 and the speedo is reading 15, which seems to be the top speed on the slowest mode. Now let's see what it does on mode 2. All right, right, seems to be hard locked at 24 miles per hour GPS, 25 on the display, and then mode 3. Alright, well, it was holding steady at 45 miles per hour, so I'm going to call that the top speed, but that is quite a lot less than what they were claiming. I also noticed that the speedometer display is very inaccurate on higher speeds. So right now we're cruising at 39 miles per hour, and the display is showing 50 miles per hour, which is insane. That's got to be the most inaccurate speedometer I've seen so far. Now, you know what? Just for shits, let's put it in mode 4. Now, mode 4 is not really like a speed mode. It's more of an anti-loop mode, but I'm just curious to see if the speed changes at all. Nope, that's all she's got. True top speed is 45 miles per hour for the Nexvey Flash Pro. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but it was pretty much a hard RPM cut. So that doesn't necessarily mean that the motor, the controller, or the battery are not capable of more speed, but at least the controller setting seems to really have a hard cut at 50 miles per hour on display, 45 on the GPS. Obviously, if Nexvey used a 90-100 rear tire, which has a slightly larger overall diameter, the same rear wheel RPM speed would result in a higher top speed. Now, I'm not being paid by this company or any other to test these bikes. I'm pretty much just doing this on my own. Yes, the company did provide me with the bike itself, but I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, and I'm not even going to have them look at this video before I post it, because I want you guys to have a realistic expectation on what you're going to get if you decide to buy one of these bikes. All right, let's try it on the anti-loop mode, mode 4. Oh, it definitely catches. Very similar to the Moxon controller, but I don't know if you guys heard that knock. Let's try that again. There's just way too much knocking around on the front end. And I think a lot of it has to do with this battery. So I'm going to see if I can tighten things up under the lid by shoving something down there. I just don't want the battery clunking around when we're out on the trail. Now, I'm not sure if this chain tensioner setup is any better than the traditional. I know the Anyland Rev Pro, which is the other self-wheelie bike that we've tested in the past, has definitely dropped a chain on me when we took it out on the trails. I wasn't too happy about, so we'll see if the Rev Pro does the same. All right, I think I may have found a solution for this battery lid rattle. Just gonna fold my glove in half and close the lid. Now, this is obviously a temporary solution, but definitely a lot tighter tolerance, and I'm not able to move the battery around as easily. This will at least reduce the rattling when we're out on the trails. Gonna do a warm-up lap. So far, it's riding pretty good. Pretty much on par with like the Leon X as far as feel. Though I do feel a little bit leaned forward compared to the other bikes, but I think that has a lot to do with the triple tree clamps. All right, let's see what kind of lap time we can get with the Flash Pro. Now, this is our home track, which we've tested over 10 bikes so far at this point. Anywhere from the Hey Bike to the Yasma IN10 Pro, all the way to a Thunder Wasp XR16, which is the fastest bike so far at 1 minute and 32 seconds. The slowest has been the Vipku H3, which was over 2 minutes, but that is a 48 volt bike, and I'm expecting a little bit more from this 60 volt 5000 watt powertrain. I would expect something similar to a Yasma IN10 Pro. So if I were to guess ahead of time, it's going to be around the 140 to 150 mark. Now I am just using a iPhone timer, which I have to reach to start and stop it, so it's going to be 1 or 2 seconds off, but I'm going to put the actual time up on the top right corner of the screen. Suspension fork is quite soft, kind of similar to the Karanj X1 Spark. Still a little bit knocking from the battery compartment, but it's not as bad as earlier. Bike feels pretty good though. It doesn't feel awkward or anything. Take the old line, so it's the same exact track as before. Ground's a little bit wet there. Now I gotta say, it doesn't feel as torquey as some of the later 60-volt bikes that we've tested, but it's still pretty fast, especially compared to the 48-volt bikes. Okay, I think that was around 1 minute and 47 seconds, which is pretty much what I was expecting. Now, what was that creaking sound? There's another noise that's gonna drive me absolutely insane. All right, I'm gonna give this lap time another shot, and then we're gonna average the two. I mean, it's plenty fast overall, but I gotta say, it's definitely not as torquey as I was anticipating. Well, good news is it's not dropping the chain like the Anyland. Oh, there it is, 147. The fact that we just got the same exact time 2 times in a row makes me feel pretty good about that time. Performance is, I want to say, a little bit underwhelming for a 60-volt powertrain, because that means this would have the same exact power as my ETM RTR Lite when it was stock, but this definitely does not have as much torque as the other bike. I mean, obviously it's enough to pick up the front wheel, at least for these lower speed wheelies, but I kind of want a little bit more torque for off-road riding. I was thinking that the 35 chain would result in less drivetrain loss. Well, you know what? Since we're testing out the torque of this thing, we might as well take it out on a hill climb test on the back side of the property. Ooh. Really rough stuff here. I would say this is about a 100-foot section, maybe around 30 degrees of hill climb. Let's see how it does. Now, I completely forgot that it shuts off the throttle if you don't touch it for a little bit, which is a good safety feature, but a bit unnecessary for dirt riding. All right, still doing it. That squeaking noise is starting to aggravate me though. Okay. I'm starting to get used to this. Okay. All right, I think I'm getting carried away. I'm actually having quite a bit of fun with this wheelie assist mode. All right, the bike's actually pretty fun. That squeaking's gonna piss me off though. I can't deal with that. So somebody recently commented on my last video that I should have a chart that lists out all the lap times for all of the bikes that we've tested on the channel so far. So I got one. So the fastest bike so far is still the Thunder Wasp XR16, which is a 16,000 watt 72 volt bike, which is also $4,700, but it's quite a gap between that and the second place. Slowest is still the Vipco H3 48 volt bike at 2:01. A minute and 47 puts the Nexvey Flash Pro right in between a Yasma Iron 10 and the Anyland Rev Pro. So for $1,600, I think the Nexvey Flash Pro is plenty of fun, though it's got a few quirks that I hope the manufacturer does something about. Now, this bike is a very early production model, so I'm not sure if they've made changes since its initial release, but I would maybe suggest changing the claimed top speed to 50 miles per hour after changing the rear tire size to 90, 100, 14. I'm thinking those might balance each other out. The foot pegs didn't bother me too much after going out and riding it, but the battery lid rattle and the squeaking coming from the chain tensioner area should definitely be addressed. I think additional insulation around the battery would really fix a lot of that. Now, I don't know too much about limitations on the stock controller as far as tuning. Okay, let's take a closer look at the controller. It's made by Hobbywing. Hall sensor, phase angle 120, battery current limit 65 amp, phase current limit 240. So this controller is pretty much maxed out for the battery output and motor combo. I wonder if I can connect to it using the app. So I tried connecting to the controller with the Hobbywing app, but it doesn't pop up under the Bluetooth connections. There is a 4-pin connector that's not connected to anything. I wonder if I can hook up like a far driver or a Voto controller dongle and try to connect to it by Bluetooth. If you are interested in getting more information on the Flash Pro, I'll leave a link to their listing in the description below. You can also get yourself $100 off this bike by using discount code PATOUTDOORS. If you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn your bell notification on. But this is going to be it for today. Thank you for watching.